Let's begin with a question you've probably never been asked, but one that's been decomposing quietly in the depths of your unconscious. What if nothing you do every day actually has any meaning at all? Not in a philosophical, abstract sense, not in terms of cosmic purpose or spiritual enlightenment. I'm talking about the real, the tangible, your routine, your job, the act of opening your eyes in the morning and dragging yourself out of bed like an obedient body. Whose soul has been stolen overnight? Have you ever felt that eerie misalignment inside? That your very core doesn't quite fit with the world you live in? Like your soul is wearing shoes 2 sizes too small, and no one around you seems to notice. There's this faint, persistent discomfort, like a background noise that never turns off. And no matter how much you distract yourself, it hums on, like a broken machine you've grown used to. What if that noise isn't random? What if it's your essence, desperately trying to scream? What if the discomfort isn't a flaw, but an alarm bell, an existential siren you've spent your life silencing? Since you were a child, they trained you to be someone, but never asked if that someone was even someone you wanted to be. You were taught to chase goals, trophies, milestones that always required one thing in return: output, performance, results. From the start, your life was curated, rehearsed, formatted, not to live freely, but to work predictably, as if work was humanity's destiny, as if productivity was encoded into your DNA. But what if it's not? What if all of this, the endless chasing, the glorification of hustle, the addiction to progress, is just a well-built illusion, a theater of production, where everyone plays their role blindly, without ever reading the script? They told you work would give you purpose. They promised fulfillment, self-worth, dignity. And yet here you are, wrinkled soul, repetitive days, haunted by a feeling you can't quite name, a soft ache in the center of your being, like you're betraying a part of yourself you barely remember. And the most brutal part, every single time you try to pause, even briefly, the world tightens its grip. If you're not producing, you're wasting time. If you're not advancing, you're falling behind. If you're not doing something valuable, you don't matter. Can you see the trap? You've been blackmailed into equating rest with laziness, into believing that joy without justification is immaturity. That staring out a window with no goal in mind is a waste of existence. But who built these rules? Who decided that life only has value? If it's monetized, you weren't born for this. You weren't meant to reduce your existence to outputs and checklists. There's a deeper part of you, wild, raw, untouched. That's been chained in silence, and it's starting to wake up. Let's go deeper. You weren't born thinking your worth depended on output. That idea was planted in you, carefully, quietly, persistently. As a child, you weren't praised for wonder, for curiosity, for presence. You were praised for sitting still, for scoring high, for following rules. You learned to color inside the lines. And if you ever asked why those lines existed, they silenced you. Not out of malice, but because the system doesn't know what to do with questions. You were not raised to be a person. You were raised to be a worker. At first it was subtle. Be good. Get good grades. Be responsible. And every success came with applause, while every pause was punished with silence or shame. No one told you, but you absorbed it. Your value is conditional. It comes from what you produce, not who you are. Everything became preparation. School wasn't about discovery. It was training. Training to sit in rows. Training to complete tasks. Training to tolerate boredom. Training to endure repetition. Because one day, you'd need those skills. Not to live, but to work. You were told to dream, but only if your dreams had a business model. You were encouraged to explore, but only within the boundaries of what could be monetized. And so, like all of us, you began to shape yourself, cutting off wild parts, smoothing your edges, adapting your rhythm to the clock. And if something inside you resisted, you called it laziness. You called it failure. You called it a flaw to fix instead of a signal to listen to. You started saying things like, I'm a designer, I'm a manager, I'm a writer, as if your job title was your name, as if your career was your identity. But what if one day that role disappears? What if one morning you wake up and you're not those things anymore? Who are you then? You see, this system doesn't just want your time, it wants your sense of self. It convinces you to merge with your output, to equate rest with guilt, to feel anxious when you're not doing something worthwhile. And that's the genius of it. You don't need chains. You just need a schedule. You don't need a boss watching. You've become your own supervisor, policing your every idle second. But here's the truth they won't tell you. You were never designed for this. You were not born to serve an economy. You were born to exist, to feel, to waste time with no explanation, to laugh without reason, to cry without warning. And if this makes you uncomfortable, good. That discomfort, it's the first crack in the illusion. It's the beginning of waking up. Because if you can question the foundation, if you can doubt the purpose of the race, you're already running in a different direction. Have you ever felt like you were running from yourself while doing exactly what you're supposed to do? Like each productive day is a silent betrayal of something raw inside you, a voice that doesn't speak in words, but in long sighs, in sudden sadness, in that haunting thought that maybe this isn't it. No one talks about that part, the part of you that longs to scream for no reason, to disappear without explanation, to stop everything, not out of laziness, but out of exhaustion. Your soul doesn't know how to name. And when that discomfort surfaces, they call it anxiety. They call it burnout. They call it mental illness. But what if it's not a malfunction? What if it's your truth? Trying to break through the programming. We were taught to chase success, but not the kind that nourishes, the kind that proves your worth, the kind you show off on resumes and LinkedIn. Meanwhile, everything that makes you feel alive, art, music, dancing, doing absolutely nothing, gets shoved to the end of the list, only allowed after the real work is done. But what happens when the real work never ends? What happens when the someday you've been living for keeps getting postponed? You look around and everyone is running, busy, rushed, focused, but no one really knows where they're going. Modern life doesn't teach you how to live. It trains you to perform, and it does it so well that when you finally stop for a moment, you feel guilty, like silence is a threat, like stillness is dangerous, like being alone with yourself is the ultimate crime. But here's what that guilt really means. They've won. They've programmed you to reject your own nature, because what's deeply human isn't producing, it's feeling. It's being useless, without shame. It's watching the sky without needing answers. It's laughing without cause, crying without explanation. But that part of you, the one that doesn't generate profit, that doesn't serve any economic function, you've buried it, you've drowned it in schedules, spreadsheets, and expectations. And every time you feel like something's missing, that's why. You're living a life not designed for you, but against you. There was someone who said all of this before you, before me, before burnout became a buzzword. His name was Georges Bataille, a philosopher, a heretic, a man who didn't care about making you more efficient or helping you succeed. He wanted to destroy all of that. Bataille believed the true essence of life was not in usefulness, but in excess, in waste, in the wild, unapologetic experience of being, without needing a reason. He called it la dépense, a sacred form of loss, a divine spilling over, of energy that has no purpose and needs none. To him, the human soul isn't a machine. It's a storm. It craves intensity, rupture, explosion, not balance, not moderation, not output. But the world doesn't know what to do with that. Modern society only understands value in terms of return. If it doesn't generate profit, if it can't be tracked or scaled, it's discarded. And so the part of you that creates without agenda, that loves without timeline, that plays, rests, wanders, gets silenced. You've been told your life must serve a purpose. You must be a contribution. You must be of service. But Bataille argued the opposite, that the most human thing you can do is something that serves nothing, to dance alone in your room, to laugh at the absurd, to create something just to watch it burn. Because that is freedom, not the freedom to choose between brands or job offers, but the freedom to exist outside of all systems. Bataille wasn't selling rebellion. He was pointing towards something more terrifying, liberation. And real liberation isn't glamorous. It's raw. It's uncomfortable. It means letting go of the identity you've spent your life performing. It means accepting that you don't have to be useful to be worthy. But here's the catch. If you stop serving the system begins to collapse inside you, not with fireworks, but in small moments. One day you stop checking the time obsessively. Another day, you rest without guilt, and slowly you begin to remember what it feels like to be human. So here you are, standing at the threshold, with guilt in one hand and freedom in the other. This isn't about quitting your job or moving to a cabin in the woods. It's about something much harder, letting go of the idea that your existence must always be justified. Because as long as you believe you have to earn rest, you will never be at rest. As long as you think your value is tied to productivity, you will never feel whole. The system doesn't need chains. It only needs a calendar. It doesn't need a boss yelling, just a notification pinging. It doesn't need to imprison your body. It only has to colonize your mind. And here's the most twisted part. You help maintain the prison yourself. You keep busy to avoid feeling empty. You chase tasks to silence the ache you feel every moment. Because the silence terrifies you, but the silence is where the truth lives. What happens when you finally stop? When the world quiets down? When there's nothing left to prove? You feel it. A pinch in your chest, a discomfort you can't name. That's not failure, that's your real self, asking why you've kept it in the basement for so long. But there's hope, because there's a way out. And it starts with one small act of rebellion. Stop obeying. Stop measuring your worth in output. Stop seeing rest as weakness. Stop pretending your value must be proven. Start by doing something small, but sacred. Sit still. Stare at the ceiling. Listen to a song without multitasking. Do something useless, on purpose, with pride. Because that's where another life begins. One not designed to be efficient, but to be felt. That's the real revolution. Not in burning down the system, but in draining it from your body, in decolonizing your soul, in making space for the parts of you that don't serve any purpose, but mean everything. So I'll leave you with this. if the world burns. While you're dancing in your room, with no reason, let it burn. That dance, aimless, senseless, free, is more human than 1,000 days of sterile work. You don't need permission to live. You don't need productivity to exist. You don't need to serve in order to matter. So now I challenge you, not with a task, but with a truth. Go to the comments and write this. I didn't come to serve. I came to feel. It's not just a phrase, it's a scar, a signal, a declaration that something inside you has begun to wake up. And if this shook you, if it broke something open, if it made you look where you've long avoided, subscribe, not for motivation, but for disruption. Because this channel isn't for everyone. It's for those who are done obeying. And now close this tab. Turn off your phone, and for just 5 minutes, do nothing. Not because you've earned it, but because you don't have to. That's the beginning of everything.